Mr. Miller. And Eric Anderson. And how appropriate that it's on Friday the 13th, and it's a full moon. Pretty cool. So they said. Alright, so kicking this off, does anyone have any opening questions?
Where's Corey Feldman?
Where is Corey Feldman?
Everyone out.
Alright, guys. So, Friday the 13th.
We're not asking that question.
What was your, how did each one of you guys get attached to the movie, and how did everything, get going?
You should go first because you're the guy. Oh. Okay. This is the short form of it. Basically, Sean and I met when I was writing another screenplay called The Black Pearl, which came out during the New York newspaper strike, and so no one wanted to see it. Anyway, we did a couple of family films, Sean and I, and because at that point the current lie that we were being told by the media was that America needs a really good G-rated film. So we made two very nice G-rated films, and they barely made their money back. And one day Sean called me up and said, Halloween's making a lot of money, let's rip it off. I am not going to shit you. So I went to see Halloween, not having seen it, and John Carpenter and Deborah Hill gave me a lesson in how to write a horror screenplay that I never forgot. That's as clean and spare and brilliantly constructed a horror movie as you'll see in this generation of horror films. So I figured out the structure and plugged in the elements, and the rest is cinematic history.
All right, sounds good. How about you guys? How did you get?
This is the reason I have a job, is because. My thing was just I had an audition on a Friday, and I was headed up to visit some friends to go watch a 3-game series between the Giants and the Padres up in San Francisco. And I went to the audition, and I was doing a TV series at the time, and I got a call from my agent after I left the audition. They said they really like you. They want to see you again on Tuesday. And I just had a couple of pages of the script. I had no idea what it was, so I showed up on Tuesday, and then they said, "You've got the job." And I said, "Well, what is this?" They said, "Well, it's Friday the 13th. It's the 4th one." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "I really think you ought to do it because Kevin Bacon did it. And at the time, John Fury had done one." And I said, "Okay." So, but I didn't. Then I read the script, and the script says the last 45 pages of the script are night rain, exterior night rain, which Ted can speak to. So this was my baptism, and a 6-week shoot turned into a 12-week shoot in January, December and January, 1983 and 84. And I'll tell you why I don't remember so much is that the continuity of any kind of movie like that is that once you get outside and you're wet, you're wet. So before every shot, they hose you down. And it's 30 degrees outside. And we froze. Not him, he's such a stud. And I will just tell one Ted White story, is that Ted took almost all the money that I made on this movie in a card game from me.
This ought to come loose. Oh, well, that's okay, it won't come out. I want to tell you a story about John Carpenter. You brought it up. I did a show with him called Starman, and in the show, I have quite a bit of dialogue as a heavy, and in the very end of it, there's a fight between Jeff Bridges and myself, and he takes off in a car and throws pebbles back into my face, and I say, "I'm going to get that son of a gun, Donnie Bob," and we jump in a station wagon and take off after him. And what's supposed to happen is a Greyhound bus pulls in between us, and this car hits the Greyhound bus. So we're in the car, and there's 3 other guys with me, and the producer walks up to the window of the car, my side, and says, "Ted, this Greyhound bus is leased. You're not to touch it." And I said, "Well, fine, I won't hit it there." And he said, "No, but listen, I don't mean tap it. I mean you're not to touch it. Stay away from it completely." And I said, "Okay, fine." So he went back to his chair, and they were rigging things up, and John Carpenter walked up to the car and he said, "What'd the producer tell you?" He said, "Not to hit the bus." He said, "Listen, I'm directing this. You stuffed that car into that bus." I said, "John, you're going to get me in trouble." He said, "I'm directing it. You're not going to get in any trouble." I said, "Can you give us 10 minutes? And he said, "What for?" And I said, "I want to go back and get a 5-point hookup on myself and these other guys. If we're going to hit that bus, we got to have something besides seatbelts." He said, "Go ahead, take the car and go." So we came back, and a great stunt guy that I started in the business by the name of Terry Leonard was the second unit director, and he was on the set. So when we came back, he said, "Ted, where'd you go?" And I said, "I went to get 5-point hookups." He said, "For what?" He said, "You're not going to hit the bus, you're just going to stop." He said, "You don't need all that stuff." I said, "Well, Terry," and before I could go any further, the first assistant said, "We're ready to go." So we went back and sat down, and they rolled it. And I said, "Guys, hang on." I was doing 40 miles an hour, and I hit the bus right in the side. Well, the hood flew up on the car, and the smoke's coming out of it. And here come the producer, and he reached through the window, had me by the neck. And I don't want to repeat the words he was saying, but it was some terrible language. And I'm trying to tell him, but I'm choking at the same time. And John Carpenter saved my life. And he came up and pulled him off. He said, "No, I told him to hit the bus." And he said, "No, you're just taking up on me." He said, "No, I'm not. I told him to hit the bus." So that's John Carpenter for you.
All right, how about anyone from the audience? I know we got some questions out there. Anyone? I see Jason Gordon is back there. Jason, you have a question? Any questions? What do you think? All right. All right, so maybe Jason don't have any questions. Got one?
Yeah. Is there anything that you guys would do differently in regards to the movie?
Is there anything you would do differently?
Anything you do differently?
Well, I've been doing it for 60 years, and I don't think I'd change it for anything else that I've ever done in my life. It's been a great life to live. I've had a lot of fun, a lot of adventure, got to travel all over the world. But I want to tell you something else about it. And I'm not saying this in a braggadocious way. I've made a lot of big movies in my time, and I mean a lot, with some of the biggest stars in the motion picture business, including Clark Gable, John Wayne, Victor Mature, Rod Hudson, on and on. But right here, in this room, this crowd, believe this or not, this is a God's honest truth. If tomorrow morning they held a convention for Gone with the Wind, and the actors were going to be there wouldn't be 10 people in the audience. Just goes to show you what Friday the 13th has done over the years. And look around you, there's got to be 75, 80 people in here. And I'm proud to be a part of it. I am really proud to be here in front of you right now, being able to talk to you. Because each and every one of you have come by my desk at one time or another, and it makes me feel very good to know that I'm a part of it.
Another question?
You know, for me, it was just my second film, really, but the first one that ever got released. And so, would I have done anything different? I didn't even know what I was doing. And I took a lot of cues from Ted. That was the thing, is I would watch him all the time and see how he handled himself and where he was standing, what was going on. He has his eyes out all the time because every stunt that was done on the picture, Ted he looked over everything that was going on there. And so I took a lot of cues from him during that period of time. And I felt bad for him when he was being attacked by Corey.
I think we got a question back there.
Funny story.
Victor, following up with what Ted had said, how was it to see this character that you created? Did you ever anticipate that it was going to turn into this cult, this people?
You said that when you created Jason, did you ever think it would turn into this?
I was for Victor.
Or Victor.
Victor, sorry.
Yeah, no, I figured. No, I don't.
You did.
No, in as much as I had worked with Sean on 2 pictures before that, which basically made almost no money at all, I certainly didn't expect this to be an A+. Plus, you know, as I say, I used Halloween as a model, and I figured that certainly something that was based on another movie would not do as well as the movie that it was based on. And so I had no particular inkling that any of this would happen. And of course, as I have mentioned in more than one interview, Jason was literally, figuratively, and in every other way dead at the beginning of my movie. That's the whole point. That was the motivation for Mrs. Voorhees. And so, and I had nothing to do with any of the sequels, so it came as a huge surprise to me that Jason was alive again and living under a lily pad somewhere in Crystal Lake, and because it sort of undid the motivation that Mrs. Voorhees had for doing all the killing that she did. I mean, she killed literally dozens of people over her short career in order to pay them back for the death of her son, who could have come out from under the lily pad and said, "Mom, stop, I'm all right." But anyway, this is not the world I live in, and so it's fine. You know, I'm happy as a bug. I love seeing the fans, and I love coming to the conventions, and I would not have it any other way. It does bugger my mind a bit when I think about Jason somehow having lived under the lily pad. So, and then the remake, the alleged remake, was really strange. But that's another question.
Any questions out there? Raise your hand if anyone has a question. Here we go.
What was it like working with Crispin Glover?
Crispin Glover. How was it like working with him?
Well, I didn't have any problem with him. You know, I got along fine with him. I only had a problem with one person on the set. That was Corey Feldman.
Could you elaborate?
That's not really true. I wish Corey was here, the little rat. I think Corey was 12 years old. 12 years old. And when I had the makeup on, I only had one eye to look out of, so I didn't have any peripheral vision at all. And he would sneak up behind me and do something with my ears or my neck and get me to twitching. And finally, I could catch him at it, and if I could get a hold of him, I'd just pinch him, and he'd run crying to his mother. She would tell me, she said, "Stay, you know, Corey, stay away from Ted. He doesn't like you." I'm not going to go with the rest of the stories that I told you earlier, because all these people in here would start throwing up. But yeah, he was a very ornery little kid. He played around. You got to remember, he's 12 years old, and it went to his head, and it's still in his head right now.
Now, as far as Crispin goes, I actually was really fascinated by the guy because he's an odd dude. And I had this day off when we were shooting up in Santa Barbara, and I went into Solvang, which is fairly close. We were north of Santa Barbara, up by Santa Ynez River, Santa Ynez Valley. And so I went and it was the very first week of shooting, so I kind of went to these stores and I bought all these little gifts for people because, I don't know, it was probably stupid, but I did it. And when I bought Crispin were these little flying toys that, they were like these little things that you wound up, and they were like these little helicopters that went up into the air. And I don't know why I felt like this would be right for Crispin. And I remember being driven off the set that day when we were shooting and seeing him standing in the middle of the field with 3 of them in the air. It was like, it made me feel really good that I had actually chosen the right gift for the guy. And we got together, and I remember one great Crispin Glover story is that he wasn't always on time. And that's something that I think Ted and I can attest to, is it's really your job as an actor to be on time. Every minute that you're not there is costing somebody something. And one day Crispin was late, and suddenly a cab came screeching onto the set. And he popped out, and he looked at the first assistant director who he's supposed to check in, or second assistant director he's supposed to check in with, and he said, "Pay him." And then he walked through the thing. I thought, now that's balls. And then the last thing is that 6 months after the film wrapped, I was in a record store over on Melrose, and there was Crispin. I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he didn't know who I was.
That's great. Any other questions? All right, we got a question back here.
And the actress that played Mrs. Voorhees, is she still around?
Yes, she's very much alive. She's just gotten to the point where it's tricky to come to these things. I last worked with her in the Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky, 5 or 6 years ago. And I guess she's been to a few since then, but she's not able to travel like she used to. So, but she's still with us. Though I read on Facebook this afternoon that Rex Everhart died. I did not know that. It's today, I guess. He was 94 years old, played the truck driver who warned what's her name, Annie, not to go to the camp. Wonderful actor. I remember him when I worked at the Shakespeare Theater in Stratford, Connecticut, and he was a player there. Really talented man, and a nice man.
Any memories from Rex from the shoot?
I have as little to do with shoots as humanly possible. I was there for one day. I would rather have a hycolonic than go to a movie set. I don't know how these two gentlemen do it. It is hours of putting D-rings on people and things and focusing and lighting, and I don't like the lighting, and I think I'm going to change this, and let's not use that filter. And I'm sitting there tearing my hair out. Believe me, it is even though I don't get the adoration that my actors do, but boy, is it nice to just be home, sitting there with the IBM Selectric for Friday the 13th, but now a computer. And it is just so nice to be alone. You meet a better class of people. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how. I mean, you know, I've done some bit parts for friends. I played a drug dealer in a promotional film for the San Jose Police Department. Their SWAT team came in and busted me. I was a meth cook. All day long I'm sitting there with moved it here and whatnot, and moved it there, and then they're going to come in, and so they did all the shots of me, and it was like 4 hours of, my God, it was nothing but moving around and just pretending to cook meth. And that afternoon the SWAT team showed up, and then they did their part. Scared the piss out of me. But they don't know how to act. They know how to not kill you, and that's about it. But anyway, I don't know how these guys do it. It's amazing. I forgot what the question was, but that's my answer.
When making Friday the 13th with Joe Zito, he had his hands full. Most of you people don't realize this, but 90% of the cast was brand new, had never worked in a picture. This young man had worked in films before, but the rest of them were pretty new. And for him to put the picture together was a very hard job. And he took to it day after day. He got a little upset with some of the actors because it wasn't exactly the way he wanted it. But he had the hardest job on the picture. And to put it together the way he did is a credit to him. And I'm not the guy that gives him credit, but he should have a lot of credit because he did a hell of a job with it.
And he went over, and that was a big deal. You know, he went many weeks over the holiday, which was like even bigger deal, because he wanted to get it the way that he wanted to get it. And that last scene where Ted ends up on the floor with a machete in his head, I, of course, had to witness the whole thing because he used my body to get into the house. So I'm on the ground for a week. We shot that thing for a week. And I'm on the ground for a week as an extra, dead. Getting paid. Getting hosed down before I lay down on the ground. Getting paid. But we went a lot longer than those movies are supposed to be taken to be shot. And that caused quite a few ruffles as time went on. You know, I have a question for Victor. Can I ask Victor a question?
Yeah.
Because I don't know that much about this. The whole iconography about the fact that people had sex and then they died, that's a thing, right?
Yeah, always.
Not always?
No,
Maybe you just had a stroke.
most of the time.
Was that part of what your creation was? Was there some kind of element in there that was associated with the fact that once you have sex, you die?
Yeah, I mean, there were characters in Friday the 13th who died and didn't have sex. But I have always thought...
Jason.
It is, I think horror movies have always been, since Frankenstein, very Victorian in their ways. And one of the justifications that I think allowed at least the Victorian audience and even into the 30s and 40s here, allows you to be, it's okay for you to be there and watch it and enjoy it because there's a moral core to it. And that's that if you break the rules, you get killed. You know, if somebody says don't go in there, you go in there, you get killed. So there's a kind of a, even though I was not consistent, I mean everybody didn't have sex and everybody didn't die. Poor old, what's his name? Nettie. Nettie didn't. Nettie had only his mind, and he got his throat cut. So, but yes, it's definitely, and it's what I inherited from Halloween, and I certainly got it from Dracula. And, I think that if sex is not part of horror, I think that's what allows it to be as much fun as it is.
I know it's true because I've been dying since I was 16.
Yes, the French call that the little death, Timor, the after, whatever.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Anyone? Raise your hand. Okay.
This is actually for Victor. How long did it take you to write it? And if you could write it again today, would you still use those same morals of sex and then death?
Okay, 2 weeks. You know, after Friday the 13th and Strangers Watching and a couple of other films that did not go as far, I worked in daytime television and wrote for 25 years with people like Susan Lucci and stuff like that. But my first mentor in that was a wonderful writer named Peggy O'Shea, who'd done radio and early television and all kinds of other stuff. And she nicknamed me the glib little bastard the first week she met me. I'm just fast. I mean, what can I tell you? And so it was literally 2 weeks for the first draft. But the hardest part was the week before that, where in order to fulfill the Carpenter Hill outline, I had to find a place where adolescents could be, where they could not be helped by outside forces. The cavalry couldn't come, the militia couldn't come, the state police couldn't come, and so that was the hardest part. It seems rather odd and obvious now that a summer camp before it opens is an ideal location. Well, in order to come up with that ideal location, I went through about 65 other locations, and I would type them all out and come up with them, and then I'd go to, Sean lived 20 minutes away, and I'd go over to his kitchen, we'd go through them, and no. Finally, when I came up with summer camp, that was it. And it worked really nicely. Trying to remember the second part of the question. And then after, in terms of, just as a side note, a footnote, the one scene I did not write in the movie is the motorcycle scene with the motorcycle cop. And I know Ron, what's his name, is a convention favorite, and a lot of people love that scene. But I had no power to say, come on. I mean, I said to Sean, this is insane. But because I didn't want, in order for that location to have its kind of isolation, I didn't want cops to be coming in on motorcycles or, you know, the Navy to come across in a whaleboat. So, I mean, you could have had people flying in all over, but that was the whole point. Hill did it was so brilliantly was that it was Halloween, and every time Jamie Lee Curtis tried to get help, the adult said, "Ah, it's just kids." So I had to find something at least as good as that.
You said that you had a list of possible locations. Was there a close second to campground?
Not that I remember. I mean, nothing just leaped off. Because, I mean, you can put a bunch of randy teenagers anywhere you want. You can put them in the back of a pickup truck. But it doesn't lend itself to 60 or 90 minutes worth of terror, depending on the truck, I guess. But yeah, I don't remember. But I mean, we went through them. Birthday parties where the adults aren't there, houses, blah 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 blah. You know. So.
I think we have time for one last question. Back there. Yes, sir.
Came in a little late, hopefully this wasn't already covered, but what was your inspiration for the actual Jason Voorhees character?
Mine? My actual inspiration was that he was simply a child. I mean, Tom Savini and Sean came up with the Ari Lehman makeup. No way did I envision him that weird. And when you figure that, you know, in my film, basically the ending is a direct steal, shot for shot, from Carrie. You know, when the hand comes up out of the grave, and then the woman wakes up in the hospital, and so it's, I mean, you know, you steal from the best if you're going to steal. I had the line, I justified Mrs. Voorhees' special attachment to him because he was in some way disabled. And I didn't want him physically crippled because that would be tricky. So he was just supposed to be a slow child, but in no way did I envision him monstrous looking. Perhaps he was, you know, retarded in some other ways, fine, but he was just, you know, you saw him in a flashback calling for help, but Mrs. Voorhees wasn't there to see the flashback, so that was all imaginary. And so I needed him to be a special kid. And then, of course, my favorite part is the shrink. I told some of you this afternoon. My second shrink of 3 said, "I can't believe you don't know why you had the killer, the woman, and especially this woman doing what she was doing." And I said, "What?" She said, "Mrs. Voorhees was the mother you never had but wished you had." I said, "What?" She said, "Well, from what I've heard over the weeks we've been together, your mother, if you had drowned, would have said, 'Well, you only have yourself to blame. I told you not to swim half an hour after eating a tuna fish sandwich.'" So, anyway, and Mrs. Voorhees was just fulfilled something hidden and dark and wonderful inside me, so that I really, you know, that's where my love lies. And as much as I love all of the sequels, I love the concept, the fact that this thing just keeps on going. My love for it is that here's a mother who said, "My son was killed because these people weren't paying attention, and they're going to pay, and anyone who even looks like them is going to pay." Ooh, I like that. So it's part of my package. Thank you.
This whole entire time we've had Jason Voorhees lurking in the back. I think it would be very cool for him to come up. If we could get some encouragement to get Jason up here, it would be a pretty cool photo. Group photo.
There's an old saying in show business, leave them laughing. So I got one to tell you. We're doing a picture in San Francisco called Portrait in Black with Lana Turner and Anthony Quinn, Sandra Dee. And I want to move it out in Utah, and they call me up to double Anthony Quinn. And I show up with a pair of Levi's and run-down cowboy boots and a Please Don't Rain suitcase and walk into this 5-star hotel. And nobody come to the desk, and I'm ringing the bell. And finally they showed up, and I said, "My name's Ted White. I'm with Paramount Studios. I want to sign in." They said, "You don't have to. Your room's all set for you." And I said, "It is?" They said, "Yeah." I said, well, I started the elevator, and he said, no, your elevator's over here. And I said, my elevator's over here. And he said, yeah. I said, studio was really going first class. We go all the way up. I opened the door, and he said, this is your quarters. Well, this was a great, big, beautiful room. It had a bar, horseshoe-shaped bar full of liquor. And there was a coffee table about 10 feet long, covered with glass, a great big basket of fruit, all covered in cellophane with a ribbon around it, and said, good luck. And I said, boy, this is top of the line. I'd only been in the business a couple of years then. So we worked to days, we switched to nights. The next night we're working nights, and I told the crew, I said, boys, I got a bunch of booze up in my room, come on up. Well, half the crew came up, and they drank, they ate the fruit up. We came back the next night, all the booze was back in place again, all the fruit was back in place. So they came back the second night. Now, the third night, it got cold, and I'm walking on the beach, and there's some chairs, a couple of chairs, guys with suits on, Anthony Quinn sitting here, and I had a 55-gallon drum with a fire going. As I walked up, Quinn says, Ted, how you doing? I said, fine. He said, well, the crew sure loves you. I said, well, they're great guys. So one of the guys in the suit says, do you work for this company? And I said, yeah. He said, what do you do? And I said, I double Anthony Quinn. He said, what's your name? I said, Ted White. He said, you son of a bitch, I'm Ed White. I'm the executive producer, and I'm in a broom closet. That's not a true story.